Hey, what's up? It's Shane. I'm going to give you a review of Captain Marvel, even though it wasn't solicited in any way at all. But, here's my hot take on it. So, spoiler free review, yeah, it's pretty good. It's kind of like a cosmic space journey. Starts out in space, and then she goes to Earth. Earth is kind of the weird place that she doesn't know about. It's kind of like a sci fi Jason Bourne mixed with Top Gun a little bit, and it's a superhero movie. Yeah, it was pretty good. I'd see it again. There's a lot of weird political stuff going on with it, but yeah, I don't know. We'll get into that later. If you don't want spoilers, stop watching. Starting now, spoilers. So, yeah, there's three main things, right? Setting, plot, and characters. Setting, great, right? Right here, showing some of it. Starts out on Hala. It's this like alien planet. It's so cool. Like their god or their leader is this AI that they all assimilate in, and they're like a communistic thing ruled by a computer, which is super cool. Like I've never heard of something like that. It's amazing. Love that. That's awesome. And then it revealed that they are like these cool Navy SEALs that all go out and like cosmic Navy SEALs that go do specialized missions against the Skrulls, which are these like shape shifting aliens. Like pretty awesome. I liked that. That was cool. Then they all go to Earth, and Earth is kind of like it's the other setting of the place where it's at first Captain Marvel comes there and she's like, "You don't know about the Skrulls? Like, are you an idiot? You don't know anything about what's going on?" And then she kind of slowly discovers that, oh, she's from Earth and the Skrulls are actually not that bad. Yeah. As far as plot goes, like I give it like a 8 out of 10. Like it's pretty good for the most part. It's a little weird at the end, but it's kind of like the same stuff as Infinity War, where it's just like the superheroes get a little too overpowered, and it's a little like inconsistent. It's kind of hard to tell, right? Like we'll just start from the beginning though. The plot, like great intro, kind of shows, doesn't tell. Like she's talking with what's his face, Jude Law for a while, saying like, "Oh, who do you see when you see the Kree intelligence?" And he's like, "Oh, nobody ever talks about that. I don't reveal that to you." And it's like this weird thing. It's like a personal kind of. I mean, it's a god. Like that's what they worship pretty much, interact with, and have like a religious experience every time they talk to it, which is pretty cool. Like that. And then after that, like they just have a cool chemistry between Jude Law and Brie Larson. I thought Brie Larson's kind of like this cocky ace pilot that's kind of being taught things and slowly learning, but yeah, I liked it. Introduces like the Skrull, the Kree, a galactic war, AI god. Does all that pretty well. Like it doesn't just have too much exposition. It doesn't just go way, way too deep into it, right? It doesn't spend forever talking about it. Like they just kind of go over it. They hit the important parts, but they don't get bogged down in, oh, how does everyone else interact with that, or how many people can interact with it, or how is it the AI consciousness formed, or anything like that. They just kind of hit the important parts, right? Which I think was pretty cool. Like that's a good way of doing it. Then they kind of go and talk about like the Skrull and how they're like the bad guys pretty much, and how they're like taking over these planets supposedly. But who knew communism was a bad thing, even when it's AI intelligence ruling it, right? So kind of shows how the villains are physically weak. Like when Carol's captured by the Skrull, she's able to just kind of beat the crap out of them, even with her fists like closed in the cylinder things. That's kind of shows some cracks there, right? Like what exactly can she do? It's a little unclear, right? They start revealing her memories, and then she gets out, and it looks like she can't survive falling through space. But then, yeah, like right there in the trailer, it's a part where she's kind of like falling through space like that, right? And at first, her suit like has a thing wrapped around her head, showing that she can't survive in space by herself. And she can't survive re-entry, and she jumps into the pod and escapes. But then she falls out of it, and then she lands super hard into a blockbuster, which like falling from the atmosphere would seem to kill you if you could just shoot lasers out of your fists. Like it's a little inconsistent. I think that's what a lot of people had problems with, was just like her powers are kind of ill-defined, right? Like by the end of the movie, she's just like a god pretty much, which is kind of ridiculous. Kind of the same way Thor was at the end of Infinity War. Like his axe could defeat Thanos with all the Infinity Stones, which are supposed to be like the most powerful thing in the universe. Like it's kind of like Dragon Ball Z stuff, where it's like, oh, his power's over 9,000, and it just means absolutely nothing. So that's kind of weird, I thought, but I don't know. Man, there is just so many crazy things about Brie Larson too. Like I don't really get a lot of it, honestly. Like a lot of these trailers are pretty good, I thought. after that, she gets to Earth, and still following the plot, she kind of goes along with Fury for a bit, and they do like this investigation trying to figure out who the pilot lady was that was inventing like a spaceship. And eventually, Carol figures out that she's from Earth, and she starts to like figure out that maybe she's been lied to a little bit by Jude Law. I don't remember his actual name. Something weird. It was like it started with a Y, like Etrig or something. I don't know. Anyway, she eventually tracks down her old co-pilot, and the Skrulls come clean. They're like, "Hey, like here's a black box showing that they just like stole you pretty much," and start telling her all these cool things. And she figures out that she's kind of fighting on the wrong side, right? And she switches sides and helps the Skrull find the Tesseract and their family, which happens to be where Captain Marvel's powers come from, is the Tesseract, which is odd, you know. Like there's a couple people that got their powers from different Infinity Stones, like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch both got their power from the Mind Stone, which is weird because the Mind Stone didn't seem to do like anything at all in Infinity War, but kind of off topic. Anyway, she's captured, and they kind of like steal her powers and take the little thing out of her neck, and they imply that earlier too. They say what was given can be taken away, saying that like her power comes from them, but then she discovers it came from the Tesseract, so she just removes it and says, "Oh no, you've just been holding me back, and then I can use these fists that I'm not supposed to use for whatever arbitrary reason." But then she's just ridiculous, right? Which is kind of a fun scene, you know? She's just kind of like fighting all these people. There's some kind of funky music playing, some Guardians of the Galaxy vibes, and she's just fighting everybody, which is, yeah, it was alright. But again, right, like she just becomes this overpowered god-like figure that it's really ill-defined exactly what her powers are. Like she can suddenly fly, even though she can only shoot fists out of her hands, and before she used them to like propel herself out of space back into the spaceship at the beginning. So it's kind of, I don't know, inconsistent, you know? And at the very end, she kind of like does the Indiana Jones thing with Jude Law. He's saying like, "Oh, come on, fight me one on one without your powers if you really are man enough." But she's like, "Oh, I don't have to be man enough. I'm not a man. I'm no man," kind of thing. Which is, I don't know, it's a little. It was fine. I don't know. I guess I could see how people could see it's a little preachy with feminism stuff, but I didn't think it was that bad really. It was just kind of like a fun superhero movie. You know, it's not meant to be political. And like the political stuff, I didn't think they really got into it much. Like they said something about how like fighter pilots can't be, like female fighter pilots couldn't be flying in combat missions, which is like a real thing, which is fine. You know, real, actual feminist issues are fine. It's just when people start making conflated issues that aren't real that I think people get upset. But as far as the characters go, like Brie Larson played Carol Danvers, main character. She was pretty much okay. I think she was maybe written a little weird. Like she's meant to be like a cocky fighter pilot, kind of like a Tom Cruise in Top Gun, where like his character flaw is he's too cocky and he has to overcome that and he gets humbled and one of his friends dies. You know, it's kind of like a trope of like a far too cocky male pilot. You know, like your Poe Damerons, your what's his face, Ben Affleck in Pearl Harbor, things like that, right? But I don't know that it necessarily works with a female character as much because I think it could work, but just generally it's a male stereotype of being like way too cocky and just doing stupid things that are far too dangerous, right? Like, you know, jumping from rope to rope. But like all the guys behind her had obviously done that before, right? I don't know. It mostly worked. I think it was a little bit written weird. Like, I don't know. She's just meant to be this cocky fighter pilot. Like, she comes to Earth and she's like, "Oh, you guys don't even know about this galactic war that's going on around you? Like, what are you, idiots?" Just kind of aloof and treating everyone like they're stupid, but at the same time she like protects Fury immediately after that, like by the phone booth when the scrolls start shooting at her, which is kind of cool, you know. The other thing too is there's no love interest in this movie, right? Like even in Wonder Woman, which is a good female-led superhero movie, it's I think the only other female-led superhero movie that's come out recently that I can think of, which is a pretty good movie too. There's a few inconsistent things there, like namely with the villain, right? The villain was kind of crap in Captain Marvel. It was just a CGI monster at the end. Not in Wonder Woman, it's just a CGI monster, which definitely didn't happen in this movie. Like the villain was pretty fleshed out, and it was kind of like a twist where the Kree ended up being the bad guys, which is cool because like you kind of thought the Kree were bad guys because you see Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy, who's trying to genocide a whole planet, right? And you're like, oh, well, maybe the Kree are good guys, and Ronan's just a fanatic, but. And Ronan ends up being in this movie too, and he's obviously still a fanatic, just nuking entire planets, which is kind of crazy to me. But yeah, there's no love interest for Carol in this movie, right? Which is kind of a good thing. Like, not everything has to be based on relationships. Superhero movie can just be a superhero movie, but I don't know. Like, there's nothing that really roots her to Earth. Fury is the thing that roots her to Earth. Like, that's what she comes back at the end. She's like, "Where's Fury? Where's my friend?" She doesn't have like a love interest in any way. There's no emotional thing at all, which is fine. Like, I think that's probably a good thing, honestly. It's kind of refreshing to see that. I mean, all the other superheroes have love interests, right? No matter how weak. Like, Thor's got Natalie Portman. I don't remember her real name. She's just some scientist who happens to think he's hot. And it's kind of out of place a lot of the time. Stark's got Pepper Potts, who again, just kind of there for eye candy. Cap's got Peggy, she's a little better fleshed out, but. And Vision's got Scarlet Witch, which again, it's kind of a weird relationship between like a woman and a computer, which I don't know. I guess we'll probably have to deal with AI racism here eventually when robots get as smart as us. And then like Captain Marvel, her love interest or her thing that kind of ties her and roots her in humanity and reality is like the children that she saves on the spaceship, and Fury, I guess, which is cool. Like, she's got some like she's invested in saving all the people and everything, and obviously does some things to try and do that. Jude Law I really liked. He's kind of like set up as a guy that's like just far too harsh teacher. Maybe it's like kind of a fun, almost flirty, harsh teacher. Like they're fighting at the beginning, and he's just kicking her butt, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, just fighting and stuff." And he's trying to make her stronger, and he says something like, "I want you to be the best version of yourself," that's one of those kind of weird relationship things that's borderline abusive in a lot of ways, where it's like, "Oh no, like you will be better no matter what," right? It's kind of, you can tell like it's kind of a weird thing from the beginning, but he's just kind of a fake good guy, right? He's just like a white knight kind of guy that's faking and virtue signaling that he's on her side, even though he's really the one who kidnapped her and wiped her memories, and not necessarily wiped her memories. Well, actually, no, I think that's implied that like the AI like wipes a bunch of her memories and stuff. So it's kind of cool, like how he starts out kind of being a sleazy mentor, and then turns around and is the good guy at the end, or the bad guy, the main villain. I liked his character; like he was appropriately mischievous, but they had some kind of good chemistry with a bit of tension to it at the beginning that you thought like kind of foreshadowed a bit. I like that. Ben Mendelsohn, God, that guy's amazing, right? He's the main Skrull guy. He's just phenomenal in every movie I've seen that guy in, right? Like Rogue One, other movies I can't think of at the moment, but yeah, like Ben Mendelsohn is just great. He's got kind of like the weird, almost lisp, whatever it is, which kind of like makes him not seem quite so serious, even though he's like this alien lizard dude that can transform into anyone, even you. Like, that's kind of a terrifying thing. Like, if you transformed into like a kid, like, would you be able to kill someone who looked like a kid if you were fighting against him? There's a lot of like mental stuff they could do there to really mess with people, especially a nurturing, loving Captain Marvel who cares about the kids first and foremost, right? Like, that's the thing that she really cares about. It's the thing that really tips her over to the Skrull side is when she sees all the kids and she's like, "Oh my god, Jude Law was trying to kill all these kids. Like, I'm not for that at all," right? Fury was awesome in this movie, right? You finally figure out where he lost his eye. Ends up being the cat scratch. I think it's called like a flurkin. It's like the weird tentacly thing. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, Fury was good. Yeah. What's his name? Oh my gosh, Samuel Jackson. He's good in most everything he's in. Hard to disparage that guy in any way. One thing I will say about this is like the magic system, right? Talk about like fantasy books where it's like Harry Potter, they have wands, or Star Wars, they have the Force. Lord of the Rings, Gandalf does kind of whatever, right? So it's like a soft magic system, which I got this from Brandon Sanderson, by the way. He does a lot of YouTube videos. He's a good writer. So it's not my ideas, just his that I'm passing along that I learned from him. But traditionally, superhero movies are very hard magic system. Like, you know exactly what superpowers Thor has, right? He's got a hammer and lightning. You know exactly what Captain America can do, right? He's strong, he has a shield. Tony, he can fly, he shoot lasers out of his hands, right? It's pretty obvious what they can do. But with Captain Marvel, where's like a soft magic system, I guess, is more like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Like, what can Gandalf do? It's whatever the plot requires, right? He can teleport in the middle of everybody in the Hobbit. He can make fireworks, light a pipe with his finger, or stop a huge demon from killing him with an axe, right? Like, it's kind of unclear what Gandalf can do. It's very unclear what Carol Danvers can do. Like her fists shoot photon blasts, and that's it. That's all the explanation you're really given. Like it's a little bit odd and out of place in my opinion, but yeah, like it's just it's hard because you can build plot stuff around a hard magic system where it's like, oh, Tony has to, like in the first Iron Man, Tony figures out the icing thing when he goes up too high and everything gets cold and freezes, right? Like, you know that he dealt with that earlier and then he fixed it in his suit, but the bad guy didn't fix it in his, right? Like, it's very concrete superpower that you can build a plot around. Whereas soft magic systems, you kind of use them to circumvent the plot where you need to. And it's getting like this in a lot of Marvel stuff, right? Like Tony and Thor in Infinity War, like there's Tony's suit can do pretty much anything, right? Like he's the only one that's able to even hurt Thanos. Like I mean, his suit's basically magic. Like they say, it's nanotech. They never explain it anymore. It's just nanotech can do everything apparently for whatever reason, right? So I don't know. It's starting to crack a little bit in my opinion. Hopefully they fix a lot of that with Endgame, but that was like my only real issue with Captain Marvel was that it's just kind of inconsistent exactly what her powers were, right? Whereas most superhero movies, you know exactly what they can do, right? Superman can fly, shoot lasers, super strong, killed by kryptonite, right? Like, you know exactly what he can do. Whereas Carol, it's like, you really don't know exactly what she can do. Which is just like a matter of baddish writing, in my opinion. But I don't know, it's not quite breaking it for me. Like, it hasn't gone over the edge for me, or I haven't jumped the shark yet, in my opinion. But I don't know. I could see how people would be upset, I guess, a little bit over what's going on with her. But yeah, some of the politics too I'll talk about, because there's a bit of it surrounding this. Like Rotten Tomatoes stopped doing their like would you see this movie thing, because a lot of people said they wouldn't, which on one side is people saying, oh, it's just too feminist and I don't want to see it at all, and other people are saying, oh, like, you don't like a feminist thing, you have to like it. So I think it's kind of like a white knight, black knight thing, if you ever seen that on the internet. Like a white knight, it's just someone who's like, oh no, she's a woman, like be nice to her all the time no matter what, 'cause she's a woman, which is pretty demeaning and stupid and kind of an incel way to think about it. But on the other side I've seen is Black Knight, which I'll just label that. I've never really heard of it, but I've seen it a lot. Like in my raiding guild, there's a couple girls, and people will just be like arbitrarily mean and vicious to them just to like prove that they're not a white knight. So it's just kind of like an overcorrection, which is odd too. But yeah. So yeah, like in the movie, there's not a lot of politics. Like I think the only thing is women can't do combat missions. And then then the guy says, like, you know why it's called a cockpit, right? Which is a dick joke. I don't know. That's fine. I thought it was funny, if anything. Just one drunk moron saying it a couple times. And then, like at the very end, she says, like, I've got nothing to prove to you or something. Which I don't know. Like, it could be seen as a feminist thing, I guess. But like, you could equally see two guys saying that to each other, like, I don't have anything to prove to you. I mean, again, Indiana Jones, right? When he's in that fight scene with the guy who like spinning the sword around, he just pulls out and shoots him, right? Like, I don't have anything to prove to you. I'm just gonna shoot you, right? Not a problem, I guess. Out of the movie though, like Brie Larson says some pretty fake woke stuff. I mean, the problem is like in the movie, the only feminist stuff is like concrete things that were real. Then Brie Larson talks about a lot of stuff that's at the very least hard to prove, right? Saying like, oh, there's not enough women on her press tour, like. It's not like they're purposefully saying men can't do this. Like, there's no law about it, but there's maybe some bias there, I guess. I don't know. At the same time, most people that watch superhero movies are men, right? Like comic book nerds. There's some women, but there's not a lot, right? I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I don't think that's very. Most people would agree with that. I don't know. So yeah, consensus though, like, good movie. I'd see it again. I watched it twice in theaters. I thought it was pretty great both times, and it was kind of like The Last Jedi, in my opinion. Like, there's just so many people saying, like, oh, you must love this movie because it's a female lead and all this stuff. And there's a bunch of people saying, oh, you must hate this movie because all they care about is a female lead. And it's like, just a lot of noise from both sides, I guess. But somewhere in the middle, like, it's an objectively good movie. Like, special effects were good. It wasn't, like, stunning like a lot of, like, some movies. Like, there's very few movies where it's actually stunning to watch, but it was still pretty good. There's some good humor in it, good interactions with Fury, good backstory for some of the Avengers. It's almost like a prequel to Marvel stuff. yeah. If there's one thing I would change though, it would be that she had to lose her powers for a bit longer, right? Like the Kree kind of take it away from her for like 30 seconds. I mean, something like in Iron Man, right? Like when Tony loses his suit for a while and can't get it back, or he's got to use the old chest thing, or just something to make the stakes a little higher, something that she has to sacrifice. And it never felt like she was in danger at any point in the movie, I guess. So maybe like, yeah, like when the Kree take it away from her, like that just lasts longer. I think that would fix a lot of the problems with it. And then she's like, all right, well, I'm not going to be with you guys, and rips the thing out. But she doesn't know that she's going to get her powers back. It's just like a sacrifice that she would make. I think that would make the movie a little bit better. But other than that, that's the only thing I would change. Yeah, pretty good movie. I'd recommend. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. Good movie. Not perfect. Not as crap as a lot of people think. So, yeah. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, then see you later.